Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, the Auditor General of the state, Jack Wagner, continues to do those pesky audits and do what? Protect the taxpayers' pocketbooks. And then our friends from the Credit Union Association are here. You won't believe this. 5 resolutions for 2011. I can't wait for these. Pennsylvania politics and government in depth and in detail. And guess what? It all starts right now.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, thanks. Look, before we get into our great guest, Jack Wagner, I want to say something. We switched our time on WGAL from 11 to 7:30. I want to tell you, I want to thank all of our audience for migrating with us. We have the second largest audience of any talk show on Sunday morning. Only Meet the Press beats us. We have more folks than Fox News Sunday, Chris Matthews, Face the Nation, Face the State, and ABC This Week. And it's about you, not about me. We try to provide you in-depth and in-detail look at politics and government in our state. Sitting across from me is one of the reasons I think people tune in. We get great guests on this show. Jack Wagner is one of them. He's the Auditor General of the state. Shameless self-promotion, and I'm promoting you this morning, right?
Well, congratulations on the ratings, Terry. Well, it says a lot about you and the program.
Well, we try to get... All right, let's get right to it. Okay. Look, this budget, $4 to $5 billion structural deficit. Governor-elect Corbett will have his hands full. Give us your general... I mean, you evaluate the books of the state. You look at them carefully. You've provided the folks out there with some excellent audits. Talk a little bit about the fiscal situation before we get into a couple of the big things that I want to talk with you about.
$4 to $5 billion of a $28 billion budget is a minimum in terms of the deficit that the new Governor Corbett and the new General Assembly will face. It is the worst fiscal crisis that the Commonwealth has ever faced. And it will require many, many tough decisions. Governor-elect Corbett has said he's not going to increase taxes. Consequently, there will need to be cuts. And as you know, there are other potential commitments out there, such as the M-Care Fund, $800 million, the unemployment compensation requirement of state government, and who knows what else. In addition, all the one-time funding sources are gone that this governor and this General Assembly have utilized. So as a result of that, I firmly believe that we need to use a scalpel to go in like a surgeon and cut the budget in areas where it doesn't harm people.
Right. Okay. Look, these decisions are not going to be easy. You know, the Republicans do. You're a Democrat. The Republicans do control both chambers and the governor's office, so it'll pretty much be Republican decisions as I see it. Now, without getting partisan about it, I mean, that's the fact of life. It is what it is.
That's true. The ball is in their court. But I think it needs to be a bipartisan effort. Number one, the public's tired of the partisan differences that exist at the federal and the state level. They want to see state government work together. Why? Because they're faced with their own tough fiscal decisions. Consequently, they want to see the state do the same things they need to do in their households and their businesses.
All right. One of the big issues in the last couple of weeks has been Governor Rendell's decision to ask to increase the bonded indebtedness of the state by $1 billion. That's a lot of money. You said no way. I'm not into that. I'm not going to sign it. If you didn't do it, then the state treasurer had to do it. He apparently negotiated $1 billion to $600 million. Talk about your decision. Why did you say what you said? Why did you say you weren't going to sign the deal which would have allowed the state to borrow this money? What was Jack Wagner's problem with that?
Governor Rendell's request was unprecedented. To ask for $1 billion with less than 2 months left in his administration. In addition to that, he has $300 million in reserve from previous bond issues to pay down for ongoing capital projects. The amount that's needed is less than $150 million a month to pay down on projects. He had a sufficient amount to get through the end of his term. Now, I can see the need for a transitional amount, which past governors have requested and were granted. The highest ever was $500 million. $1 billion is twice that. I was opposed to it. I was opposed to the $650 million, which was the final settlement, because it creates too much additional debt to the Commonwealth going forward. It really means that we're adding to that $4 to $5 billion deficit, not 1 year, but for 20 consecutive years.
All right, we're going to run to a break. I want to ask you about the cost, the automatic pay hikes that lawmakers, some executives, and judiciary gets, but we're pushing $1 billion in interest payments on the debt. Is that yes or no on that?
$1 billion, well, it's $650 million.
Now.
Yes, 650 was the final on the bond issue.
Right.
Right.
But so I mean, all the debt that the state will be paying for all the interest that is borrowed is now consuming a huge chunk of the $28 billion. That's my point.
Annually, it's about $1 billion.
Whoa, that's a lot of money. All right, automatic pay hike for lawmakers, should it continue? The Auditor General of the state will weigh in on that subject and more following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by PAConstructionJobs.com. For more information about rewarding careers in the highway construction industry, visit PAConstructionJobs.com. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back with the Auditor General of the state, Jack Wagner. All right, every year, as you know, since 1995, the state legislature and some executives in the governor's office, executive branch, I should say, and the judiciary get a pay hike. It's based on the consumer price index from Mid-Atlantic. If there's a bump up, they get a bump. It's automatic. They don't vote on it. It was 1.7%. Not a lot of money, but some controversy. What's Jack Wagner's position? Automatic pay hike.
Well, I don't want to sound hypocritical. First off, I voted for the COLA in 1995 as a state senator, and you know I was a state senator for 10 years. The purpose behind the COLA was to make sure there was never another pay grab by the General Assembly.
Right.
And to make sure that increases are small and they are periodic in nature.
Right.
What was not taken into consideration was a recession. We're in a recession.
Yeah.
We're faced with that $4 to $5 billion deficit. It's time for the leadership of Pennsylvania, the governor, the General Assembly, to step to the plate and to say that we're not taking an increase because the public is not getting an increase. Social Security recipients for the second consecutive year are not getting an increase. Therefore, leaders, and the leaders in government, leaders in politics should not be doing something that the public is not benefiting
Now,
from.
majority of lawmakers, I think the last count I had was 130 of them have agreed to turn it back, the 1.7, saving about 191 or 192,000, some to the Treasury, some to charity. You think that's a wise decision on their part?
Not good enough. That's been my position on that. Turning it back or making a contribution to charity is not putting it back into the Treasury.
Right.
In addition, it's
they
not...
get a tax break if they give it to charity, right?
That's true. You're exactly right. And I have written a check back to the Treasury for the last 2 years.
Okay.
I'll do the same this year if the General Assembly does not place a moratorium on it for this year.
Right. Now, go ahead, finish your thought.
So I think, number one, you can save $3 million. And it's just not a $3 million one-time savings, it's permanently into the future.
Sure.
So let's do the right thing. Let's take a leadership position. It requires a bill of the General Assembly, and Terry, what I would like to see is this be House Bill number 1 or Senate Bill number 1 and have bipartisan support.
You have a bunch, you do have a bipartisan group of lawmakers, I think, that will push for that. I mean, what struck me is the lawmakers were getting this cost of living bump, and then in 2005, they wanted to do this 16 to 54% increase in their own pay in spite of getting the bump.
In spite of, and that's the reason why it was so wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the part that, from my look, I think the General Assembly should be well paid. I'm not against that, but I didn't understand getting a bump every year, inflationary bump, and then going after a huge increase, not just 5%, but 16 to 54%.
Well, based on what happened in 2005, and the public overwhelmingly objecting, I don't think you'll see that happen again.
All right, we're going to run to break. Prescription drugs, can we save some money? The Auditor General says he knows how to do it. Plus, I want to ask him, why isn't he auditing the judiciary? Why is he not auditing the legislature? We'll get into that and other subjects with the Auditor General following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Auditor General Jack Wagner is my special guest today. We're chatting about a whole bunch of things related to the fiscal health, stability, and well-being. I like that well-being part. I know that's something you care about. All right, I wanted two quick things in a couple minutes that we have. Prescription drugs. Why should anybody out there care about how we buy prescription drugs? I know you're going to tell me.
Well, I've offered a number of suggestions on how to cut the budget of state government without harming anyone. One of those areas is within prescription drugs. We have 17 programs where we purchase prescription drugs individually within 9 agencies of state government. If we were to consolidate the purchasing of the drugs, for instance, Lipitor, and we buy it in larger bulk, we can reduce our cost. It costs Pennsylvania taxpayers $2.2 billion a year for those 17 programs. That's a huge sum of the state budget. If we can consolidate those purchases within state government alone, we can save between $50 and $100 million a year. Now, we can go farther. If we consolidate our purchases with a couple adjoining states, such as New Jersey and New York, and buy Lipitor, again, in a larger bulk, we can save an additional couple $100 million a year, just not us, but the adjoining states. This has been attempted and talked about by 3 governors, including Governor Rendell. But the bureaucracy of state government and the lobbying effort from the pharmaceutical drugs have overwhelmed it. Yeah. And it's time that be a top initiative of the new governor and the new General Assembly.
All right, we got a minute left. I want to get right to the heart of this. Under state law, you audit the executive branch. You don't audit the legislature and the judiciary. Why should they be exempt from independent audits by someone who's trying to find out, how the money is? We're not accusing anybody of anything illegal or wrong. Why can't we have independent audits?
We could, with a change in the law in state government. It would probably be challenged by the judiciary, but I am more than willing and prepared to audit the General Assembly and the judiciary. If you take the one issue such as the COLA, the majority of the increases within the COLA are within the judiciary, within district justices, common plea court judges. So, and there's a multitude of issues related to the General Assembly where I believe an independent auditing entity such as the Auditor General could provide some independent suggestions on how to reduce their costs.
All right. Jack Wagner, Auditor General, thanks for coming on. All right, resolutions for 2011. Are you ready for these under our financial literacy update? We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care.
Hi, welcome back. Well, our popular financial literacy update, and we're going to get into some resolutions. Now, I know what you're thinking. Resolutions for 2011? and we're not into the Christmas yet. Sit back, we'll be okay. Joining me, as often is the case, is Mike Wishnow. He's a senior VP with the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association, and we got the president of Belco Community Credit Union here, Lonny Maurer. All right, we're going to be a little early with this, Michael. You okay with that?
Oh, better off early than late.
We're going to get a jump
That's
on
right.
it. All right, consumers seem to be more confident, spending a little more money as we get through this holiday season. That's a good thing. They say their finances are just a little bit better than last year. Do I got that right?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
All right, let's go. 5 resolutions. You write these down at home. All right, you get to say, what's the first one?
Well, the first one is develop a written monthly budget. And written is the key word. As we look at how we spend for the next year, a budget really is your life priorities. Yeah. And if you see that you're spending too much in one category or another, you can adjust that. Yeah. You know, and everybody needs fund money, but you'd be surprised.
Almost 50% of us say we spend too much or spend more than we make. Is that about right?
Well, yeah, and I'll bet you more than 50% don't have a written budget.
Yeah. And half of us live from paycheck to paycheck. None of this, I mean, we want people to spend, but we also want people to save and to be judicious about it. Is that right?
Well, that's an upcoming resolution, I believe.
Yeah, you got it. All right, now, you get the next one. Resolution number 2.
If you don't already have one, establish a relationship with a credit union or bank.
Yep.
And that's very, very important. Approximately 10 million consumers today are not associated with any institution. They're unbanked.
Yeah. Hold on. What do they do? I wouldn't know. I mean, I'm both a bank and a credit union.
Yeah, I mean, they go to check cashers, they go to pawnbrokers, they go to the fringe lenders that are predatory, right, Lonny?
And they are the ones that are charging them enormous fees, high interest rates to avail their services. And certainly, it would be much better with an institution such as a credit union or bank.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the third one. The third one is take a critical review of your personal debt. I don't know anybody. You take that one away.
Well, I'll start with Americans as a whole are doing better with personal debt this year than they have in the past several. Many folks have paid attention to their credit card debt particularly. More folks are using debit cards, using cash for their Christmas shopping. Yeah. And I think that it's important to look at your debt, and if it makes sense to restructure it, then maybe look at how you could better avail your debt. You
run one of the most important, credit unions in the state, and what do you see coming in, or in just the typical consumer folks who have deposits and savings accounts? Is Michael right about that, or you get the sense from just dealing with people? Go ahead.
What we see are people are saving more today. That's important to realize. Just a year ago, we were spending far more than we should have been as a collective society. We're spending 0.6% more than we made, and today we're beginning to roll back to a point where we're saving 3%. But a lot of that is on fear, because of the recessionary trend that we're in. What we're hoping for is that consumers will learn a very valuable lesson and continue the savings habits they have today, and perhaps even grow them to higher levels.
That's a good point. Also, next one, develop a plan to save and invest. Go ahead.
During World War II, 24%, or Americans were saving more than 24% of their household income. And of course, today, that number, as we said, has declined to much lower levels. The average 50-year-old at this point in time is less than $40,000 saved in total collective personal wealth. Mm-hmm. We can't retire on that. People have to learn to save more. And the only way to do that, as Michael said, is with a written plan. Yeah. It's so critically important for families to develop one and then live by it.
The other thing is, I mean, we talk an awful lot about Social Security. I mean, for many people, that's just not sufficient to live on. And I mean, you can't live, yeah, people are working longer and working harder, and every study I've seen says we're not saving enough to live even remotely close to the lifestyle that we've lived before we retired. Is that right, Mike?
Well, I think that's right, and I think a big part of it, and Lonny will probably bear this out, is that we're not starting to save soon enough in our careers.
Yep.
When we're in our 20s and 30s is when we need to save, because then we can take advantage of the compounding. So when you're in your mid-60s and you're ready to retire, you've got a decent nest egg.
Well, Mike, go ahead. No.
I want to make a critical point here because I think it's very important. As in the past, there was a three-legged stool concept that we survived on, or we believed in, and that was that there was a personal pension plan provided by the employer which we could contribute to, perhaps. Most of that cost was paid for by the employer. The second was Social Security, and of course then the third was a 401k.
Right.
Today, it's all 401k if it's available, and Social Security, which may be doubtful for a lot of Americans in the future.
And the other thing is people must make the full employee contribution into their 401k plan every chance they get. All right, teach your children about personal finances.
Well, we've talked about this time and time again on this show. Savings habits begin literally before kindergarten. You have to start very early. In some families, it's taboo to talk about personal finances with the children, but it's very, very important that they understand from an early age.
But don't kids basically get their information about personal finances from their parents?
Correct.
So is that why what they get from them is important? Probably also observing what their parents do with credit cards and debt. You know, those conversations, I'm sure, don't go unheeded with kids, right?
Absolutely, and that's why we are extremely supportive of in-school financial education. In fact, I think Lonny's credit union does a great job, not just in schools, but in the community, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we conduct a lot of what we term financial literacy programs among the schools and in the community each year.
Okay. Well, look, I'm going to review these and develop the 5 resolutions. Develop a written monthly and annual budget. Number 2, if you don't already have one, establish a relationship with a credit union or bank. 3, take a critical review of your personal debt. 4, develop a plan to save and invest. 5, teach your children about finances. We have about a minute left. Mike, what's your sense about the year ahead in terms of savings, debt, and all of that? Give me your...
Everything we look at, savings rates are on the increase, which is a good thing.
Right.
Debt is on the decrease generally, particularly household debt, which would be home equity debt and consumer debt. Those are both way down.
Yep.
Right now, so far in the Christmas season, consumers seem to be spending pretty well and seem to be positive about the economy.
We got about 15 seconds up, but we still having this mortgage problem, aren't we? The people losing their homes. How bad is that?
It's still bad. There's still many foreclosures that have not yet happened. And unfortunately, until that ends, housing prices will not stabilize and begin to rise.
All right, there it is. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and thanks for watching. And as always, stay well.